So just from a level set, from a technology perspective, I mentioned a little earlier that we support, that we originally started supporting just block protocols, so that ISPASI first, Fiber Channel next. We introduced support for NFS, and that's actually been received really well. One of our design partners on that effort is in the room, Bill Bragg and his team. We engaged with them very early on to try and increase their footprint with NFS. So they definitely help contribute to some of the design decisions there. We've got quite a lot of traction in the past 3 months that the product's been out. A couple of leading petroleum firms, a bank, are some of the early customers. Another manufacturing company are some of the early customers that we've had with the technology. From a storage ecosystem perspective, we didn't get a chance to go really talk about how we can do backup across the WAN, but essentially just think about it as if whatever data you have at the edge, you want to make sure that there's multiple copies of that in the data center, and we integrate with data center storage to essentially schedule snapshots on that storage subsystem to have snapshot APIs for vendors are non-standard by design, I think. So, we've had to go through an effort where we've had to do them piecemeal, and we support about we support almost a dozen storage arrays from that perspective, and we are looking to increase support for that using some OpenStack technologies. What we also did earlier in the year is we've traditionally sold as a Riverbed appliance, but we've also now increased the flexibility to be able to go, essentially we've got some interesting hardware, and we could have talked about it earlier, but the core value of the technology lies in the software. We've made it possible to run on commodity hardware. What we do have is a reference spec, and so long as the hardware meets those specs, you're able to go run our software. So we've run on pretty much most of all the regular server vendors, but also this was a strong ask from some of our excuse me. It's quite appropriate that I stop talking when I talk about classified customers that want to run this on specific hardware that just cannot generally talk about. So, but yeah, it runs on some of that kind of hardware as well. So
it's okay. I live in New Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, but okay. So, and you're going to support Cinder in a future release?
Yes, that's actually pretty imminent.
That's the solution to everybody's snapshot uses a different API.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to see the use of some of these OpenStack projects that create standard APIs outside of OpenStack.
Yeah, I think it's
because the APIs are important.
Absolutely, I think it's important to support that, and it's a no-brainer. Honestly speaking, for us, it's just an absolute nightmare trying to keep up with that ecosystem. So it's beneficial for us. So next thing, we are just going to segue a little bit quite quickly. We've been talking about the data center, but earlier this week at Microsoft Ignite, which is still going on in Orlando, we announced a preview of our Azure Ready Edge. So all this time, what we've been talking about is VMware and so on. But we do recognize that there's other virtualization vendors, particularly in the enterprise. Hyper-V is the one that we are looking to support. So we announced our Azure Ready Edge, which essentially goes and says, in addition to VMware as virtualization, we are going to support Hyper-V as the virtualization engine. So all the application smarts that we've built around NTFS over VMFS and so on, we would support that with Hyper-V as well. But more importantly, what we're doing is we are transitioning from just a pure data center model into an Azure model. So all the data, rather than getting consolidated to your data center on data center storage, could now go in and live in Azure. That's something that we thought was pretty interesting because it just allows us to truly go and get that cloud-like experience with cloud-like model, go and get the benefits of, go and get the basic OpEx versus CapEx benefits and so on. And then lastly, we've also integrated with some of the SD-WAN technology that Vivek and Javier are going to talk about, and being also able to not require MPLS links, but also use commodity internet links. So in the interest of time, what we did do is we did put together a quick demo.
In this demo, we'll preview how a Hyper-V-powered remote or branch site will provision and recover applications and services directly from the Azure Cloud, regardless of location or distance. With Riverbed, SteelFusion Core in the Azure Cloud, edge sites can be seamlessly consolidated into Azure storage without compromising end-user performance at the edge. Let's take a look. First, you go to the Cloud Core residing in Azure. From the main dashboard, go to Configure and select Azure Storage. This will then launch the Azure Provisioning Wizard. Select the Mount and Map Azure Storage button. Now you'll select the edge site you'd like to map to. In this case, we select San Francisco and click Next. Let's create a new cloud volume in Azure called Demo Volume 1 and give it 500 GB of capacity and click Next. In the confirmation window, you'll see the edge site along with the volume name. Click Done to commit the changes. In the summary screen, you see the newly created volume and the allocated storage size for that volume. Following the wizard, cloud volumes will be immediately available at the edge, and the VMs can begin to boot even before all the data associated with them is transferred to the edge. With just a few easy clicks, we just provisioned Azure storage, and the intelligence built into SteelFusion extended that storage as local to the remote site, independent of distance. All of your data stored on these cloud volumes will be continuously consolidated and protected in the cloud. Now let's have a look how to deploy a VM or even a series of VMs to quickly bring up a new remote service, an application, or an entirely new remote site. In the Azure portal, we have already populated a cloud volume with a Windows 10 VM template. We can make this cloud volume available to remote sites and quickly deploy the VM. Let's go back to the Azure Provisioning Wizard and select the Mount and Map Azure Storage button again. Select the same edge, San Francisco, and this time choose Existing Cloud Volume. Map to the Windows 10 template in the dropdown, and just like that, we've rolled out a template that can be easily scaled to multiple sites. Now we go to the Hyper-V Manager at the edge and perform the usual tasks of importing and registering the VM before powering on and logging in. With SteelFusion's intelligent prefetching technology, only the working set of data needs to be transferred over the WAN at boot up, eliminating WAN congestion and still providing edge users the application data needed for optimal performance. You see here, a Windows 10 VM is ready for production use. In the next part of the demo, we show how fast and easy the Azure Ready Edge can recover your workload in case of a remote failure or even a malware attack. Looking at the cloud volumes that have been created in Azure, you can see the details about each one, such as capacity and what edge it's mapped to. Now, look at how easy it is to protect and recover your workloads. You'll click the volume and select the Protect tab. Here you can specify a schedule at which recovery points will automatically be created. Additionally, you can also click the Create a Recovery button to create a point-in-time snapshot of the storage volume residing in Azure. You can see here that the snapshot was successfully created. In the case of a remote VM or site failure, you can instantly restore to a previous snapshot with just the click of a button. Just follow the same process you saw earlier to deploy the VM to the same or alternate site. Recovery time is massively accelerated, and since all of your data is continuously replicated to Azure, RPO is virtually zero.
It's something, this is something that we are very, very excited about. It's the next big thing that we are working on from an engineering and a product development perspective. And you'll be hearing more about this in the weeks and months to come. So we're definitely going to have an early access and a beta program. So we'd love to go and start engaging more customers and potentially even some of you, if you're looking to play around with this, we'd love to go and work with that.
Are there any licensing implications with that? Because won't you now have something running in Azure and then something running on your prem?
So at any given moment in time, what you're going to be running is just one instance. So essentially that instance should be transferable.
Synchronized.
You're not going to be run. It's the storage that gets synchronized. It's not really two running instances. Okay. It's not like a double take like a software, which is like continuously updating across a network link to tour essentially running VMs. It's not that.
But your licensing model of the software is going to dictate that. I mean, they could require you to, some companies, right, require you to license this type of stuff.
I think you're referring to one that's going to have a major show.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes, licensing is depending on the vendor that you're working with. Okay.
So any other questions on the SteelFusion piece? We're going to transition into the next aspect of the edge, which is the network. But hopefully what we talked through is that there's a difference between managing even converged infrastructure at the edge if it represents a different island that you have to manage and back up and protect and provision. And that the technology around extending storage over that wide area network, and then the prefetching technology and knowing which blocks to send over the wide area network even before they're being asked, allows you to think of those edge locations as really an extension of the compute, virtualization, and storage inside your data center, which is novel and different.
Quick question on the previous concept of SteelFusion, and now that we're moving to SteelConnect.
Sure.
There's this trend towards edge in a box.
Right.
Can this all be one box?
Yes, it can. So you have a virtualization platform. VMware supported today, Hyper-V next year. Embedded is also WAN optimization. You can run a virtual form factor of the SteelConnect SD-WAN gateway on that virtualization platform, along with any other business applications. And in the case of the SteelConnect appliances themselves, not SteelFusion, but in the case of SteelConnect appliances, some of them also have embedded Wi-Fi. So you have a wireless and a gateway, which is particularly good for retail if you want to have the SD-WAN and Wi-Fi in some of your retail outlets. So we can go back maybe towards the end and show that holistic picture.
Yeah, essentially, at that point in time, just to add to what Josh said, you're running SteelConnect as a networking service, as an SD-WAN service on the SteelFusion appliance. So you can just I don't like to call it that way, but that could be the Uber platform on which you're running multiple. SD-WAN is just another networking service you're running on SteelFusion. And I think Bill's going to talk a little bit about that too. So we'll get to know more, and because he's doing that at Riverbed already.
If you run it all in one box, is it managed in SteelConnect Manager, or does the other?
So from a management perspective, so SteelConnect Manager is going to provide that overlay. It's going to manage all the overlay networks,
the networking side of
connectivity. The rest of the virtualization stack you typically manage through vCenter, but the storage that's associated with it, and essentially you would not need to manage those as Josh was saying earlier. You're not going to manage those manage it as distributed islands, but as a cohesive whole.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.